Hello, welcome back to Cloud Pedagogy. Today we are going to discuss AWS Global Infrastructure. We will dive into the AWS Global Infrastructure covering both regions and availability zones, followed by on how to interact with AWS resources. This gives you the technical knowledge and vocabulary that you need to create and discuss AWS architectures and properly to understand AWS documentations and examples. Infrastructure like data centers and networking connectivity still exists as the foundation of every cloud application. In AWS, this physical infrastructure makes up the AWS global infrastructure in the form of availability zones and regions. First, we'll see what is region. Regions are geographic locations worldwide where AWS hosts its data centers. AWS regions are named after the location where they reside. For example, in the United States, there is a region in North Virginia called the North Virginia region, in Oregon called the Oregon region. There are regions in Asia Pacific, Canada, Europe, the Middle East, and South America, and AWS continues to expand to meet the needs of its customers. Each AWS region is associated with a geographical name and a region code. Here are a few examples of region codes. US East 1. This is the first region created in the east of the US. The geographical name for this region is North Virginia. Next, AP Northeast 1. The first region created in the northeast of Asia Pacific. The geographical name for this region is Tokyo. AWS regions are independent from one another. This means that your data is not replicated from one region to another without your explicit consent and authorization. That's about regions. But how do you choose the right AWS region? Consider four main aspects when you deciding which AWS region to host your applications and workloads. First, latency. Second, price. Third, service availability and compliance. Latency. If your application is sensitive to latency, choose a right region that is close to your user base. This helps prevent long wait times for your customers. Synchronous applications such as gaming, telephony, WebSockets, and IoT are significantly affected by higher latency. But even asynchronous workloads such as e-commerce applications can suffer from an impact on users' connectivity. Next, price. Due to the local economy and the physical nature of operating data centers, prices may vary from one region to another. The pricing in a region can be impacted by internet connectivity, prices of imported pieces of equipment, customs, real estate, and more. Instead of charging a flat rate worldwide, AWS charges based on the financial factors specific to the location. The third, service availability. Some services may not be available in some regions. You can check the AWS documentation provides a table containing the regions and the available services with each one. The last one, the data compliance. Enterprise companies often need to comply with regulations that require customer data to be stored in a specific geographic territory. If applicable, you should choose a region that meets your compliance requirements. Next, we will see what are availability zones. Inside every region is a cluster of availability zones which is called AZ. An AZ consists of one or more data centers with redundant power, networking, and connectivity. These data centers operate in discrete facilities with undisclosed locations. They are connected using redundant high-speed and low-latency links. AZs also have a code name. Since they are located inside regions, they can be addressed by appending a letter to the end of the region code name. For example, US East 1A. It is an AZ in US East 1, which is nothing but North Virginia region. SA East 1B, an AZ in SA East 1, which is Sao Paulo region in South America. If you see that a resource exists in US East 1C, you know this resource is located in AZC of the US East 1 region. Now we will see scope AWS services. Depending on the AWS service you use, your resources are either deployed in the availability zone, region or global level. Each service is different. So you need to understand how the scope of a service may affect your application architecture. When you operate a region scoped service, you only need to select the region you want to use. If you are not asked to specify an individual availability zone to deploy the service in, this is an indicator that the service operates on a regional scope level. For region scoped services, AWS automatically performs actions to increase data durability and availability. On the other hand, some services ask you to specify an availability zone. With these services, you are often responsible for increasing the data durability and high availability of these resources. So how do you maintain the resiliency? To keep your application available, you need to maintain high availability and resiliency. A well-known best practice for cloud architecture is to use region-scoped managed services. These services come with availability and resiliency built in. When that is not possible, make sure the workload is replicated across multiple availability zones. At a minimum, you should use 2 availability zones. If one entire availability zone fails, your application will have infrastructure up and running in at least a second availability zone to take over the traffic. I hope you understand how the AWS global infrastructure is. In the next session, we will see how this AWS global infrastructure is implemented in our lab called Student Directory application. See you again in the next video.